Mute. All right, so this should be recording, and it should be recording my screen, so we're going to hope it does. If it doesn't, I'm going to figure it out, because this is, you guys are the guinea pigs for my video streaming with Zoom. Don't you? All right, so let's go around, and not everybody knows everybody. So first things first, I'm going to hand these to you, because I noticed a typo again. I'm bad with the formatting typos, like the ones where you use a page you've used before, and then you change things on it. And I missed the date on this, was totally wrong. And for some reason, Annie Lennox is still playing. Let me turn her off. We don't need Annie Lennox. She's cool, but we don't need her. Awesome. Okay. So, open up right here. Eleanor will show everybody the first page. See at the bottom? That's the wrong school year. So you have a sticker to put on top of it. So this is Eleanor, right? And I'm Miss Danny, and I've known Eleanor for, how long have I known you, Eleanor? 3 years? 2, 3 years? Eleanor goes to my church. So I've known her for a while. And Delia, and I've known you for 4 years, probably. It's been a long time. Yeah, I teach Delia's older brother. Where's Dylan? Is he coming later? Oh, okay. Yeah. Your folks are driving everywhere. And Traveler, we're missing my son. I just noticed.
Yeah.
Hey, Cole. 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 Hold on. Cole. Where's your brother? Would you please tell him his classes started? Oh my gosh. Okay.
I was like, I know we're missing.
We're missing someone. It's my kid. Yeah. All right. Let me go back over this way then. Okay. So this is Jack, and this is Jackson. Okay. And then this is Lily. And you're both brand new. Jack and Jackson are brand new. They don't know anybody here. So we got to give them time to get names. So Lily and Lily's older brother, Ethan, is in the older group. And Savannah's older sister, Sydney.
Call her Saba.
Call her Saba. And Traveler, his 2 older sisters, are in the other group. And at some point, Drew will appear. I don't know where Drew is.
Where?
Drew, bring your binder in your butt. Yeah, come in. He just lives here. Yes.
Like, I'm not supposed to be on time.
Yeah, you know, when you live here, right? All right. So, let's see. Are we still doing what we're supposed to be doing? Hello, Drew. Pick a spot. Sit down somewhere.
Okay.
Pick anywhere. You're going to want to take that with you. Yeah.
I know her.
Take it with you. Sit down somewhere. All right. Excuse me. Excuse me. That's okay. It's just a chair. Don't worry. It's an extra chair. No worries. Okay. I'm going to make sure this is doing the right thing here. Okay, it's still doing. All right. So, yeah, we're going to, here we go. I think it's going now. All right, so we're gonna share, I'm gonna share my screen in the video so you guys can see it. But first thing I wanna do is kind of walk, Drew, change the date on the first page inside your binder. Now, Drew, you missed introduction. So this is Jack and Jackson, and you know Lily. Do you know Savannah? You've met Savannah, I think, and Traveler, and you know Delia, and you know Eleanor. Okay, so we're good. All right, so open it up. The very first page at the bottom, I put the wrong date. You see it? Thank you, Lil. All right, so let's look over real quick. I just want to breeze through our binder to make sure everybody understands where to find things and how things are going to work so that nobody's totally lost and going, oh my gosh, what are we doing? So I'm going to go to my print file, which has everything in it. All right, so you should have on your, it says page 3 at the bottom, preface. And on the other side says page 2. You see that? When you open it up and turn to your very first page? Okay. So your table of contents there is going to have some dates on it. Now, these should be the dates for every single one of these lessons. Now, what I want you to look at is the headings. Do you see where it says under first quarter? You guys have it? Oh, keep going. A little further back. All the way to the very, very front. Like, turn to the very second. There you go. It's that one and then the one behind it. Because these two guys, they didn't understand my instructions when they printed their binders, I guess. So they printed them single-sided and not double. Keep going backwards, Trav, a little further. There you go. Keep going 1 or 2 more. One more. One more. You got it. Okay. So what you've got in your binder right now is everything that's in your first quarter. So that's lesson 1 through lesson 9. Okay. And lesson 1 through lesson 9. And if you look, you don't really start the physics part, which is the meat of physical science, until lesson 5, right? So our first 4 lessons are background information, which is basically what this lesson is today, background information on science. And then lesson 2 is, lesson 2 through 4 is Earth and space, because most physical science curriculums have an Earth and space component. So your book didn't, but the older group does. So what we want to do is align our labs so that they make sense for everybody. Does that make sense? So if they're doing some Earth and space, then we're going to do a little Earth and space just so we have a little background. Most of them did Earth science with me last year, so they're breezing through it. So what you're going to get in these first four lessons or so is a lot of information at one time, but it's not stuff we're going to get picky about, okay? Once we get to lesson 5, they're going to be much smaller lessons. And if you look at, well, I'll show you in just a minute when we get there, but you'll see what I mean. It gets much, much smaller. So we've got our grading scale on the next page, on page 3. Do you see that? Where it says grading scale on page 3 on the left side, about 1 paragraph down. So this means that your homework's going to be worth 15% of your grade, class participation 10. Do you see that? Okay, and that talks about extra credit. So if you want extra credit, I cannot speak today, credit, you can complete up to 3 questions from the textbook's applicable chapter assessment. So that means whatever chapter we're doing, chapter 9, chapter 3, chapter 20, there's an assessment at the end in everybody's textbook. And you can pick up to 3 of those questions and write them out on a separate sheet of paper for me. And I'll give you credit up to 100% plus 1, which is usually about 5% more based on the number of questions on your test. Does that make sense? Okay. So if there were 15 questions on your test, I can give you 16 out of 15 if you get all your extra credits right and you didn't miss any others. But even if you get all 3 right and you started with 100%, I can still only give you credit for 1, because we don't want people coming in at like 115%. That's crazy. That kills the curve. They call that killing the curve. That means that somebody's grades are smoking everybody else's, and it doesn't balance out well for the rest of the group. All right, and then late assignments. Does everybody see that? Okay, I want to make sure you understand this and want to make sure you read over that, okay? Because your first day, you're going to lose 3 points off your total if it's late. Now, this first week or so, we'll bend and flex because people are still understanding how to turn things in. But once we get rolling, I've got to be picky about it, because in the past, when I wasn't picky about it, sometimes it would take like 4 weeks for people to get an assignment in. And that's really hard if it, because you're smirking because one of them is related to you. And, but what happens is you end up with, like, say a lab, and a lab is late. Well, you have to get all that data when you're in the lab. And if you don't, then 3 weeks goes by and you don't remember what happened, and neither does anybody else. And they're trying to find notes and nobody can help you, and you end up losing all your credit for it, which is terrible. So it's use 3 points off the total for the first day. If it's a week late, that's 5 points. So here's what you got to consider. If you've got stuff going on and you can't get it turned in, or for whatever reason, you can't get it turned in, you're only going to lose 2 more points between day 1 and day 7. So you have to decide that this is a matter of what's worth it to me, right? Is it better that I just wait and turn it in a week later and lose 5 points? Because if you turn it in 2 days late, it's still just 3, right? You see what I mean? So you have to kind of decide how much time you need, all right? And then by the second week, it's 10 points. And then after the third week, it's just going to be a 0. Now, if something happens, like you have an emergency, a family emergency, whatever, that's not, we'll deal with that separately. You just tell me. Just always tell me. I had a college professor who said the best thing ever once. Started class by telling everybody that he expected us to be responsible and turn our work on time. But if we ever had an emergency, to tell him. Because he said when he was in college, one night he had a big paper due the next day and he was still working on it. And he said he spent nearly the entire night from like 11 p.m. till 4 or 5 in the morning keeping a drunk friend off his motorcycle so the guy wouldn't go drive and get in an accident. He said, and I had to fight him all night and it was exhausting. And I came in the morning and I told my professor, look, this is what I was doing last night and my paper's not done, but my friend's alive. And the professor said, oh, too bad, it's a 0. And he said, I'll never, ever do that to you. And I thought, well, you're a human being. I won't do that to you. So just be honest and tell me what's up. All right. I think the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory. When we get to the end of the year, we'll do that big Rube Goldberg project, and that's going to be cool. If you look at the first page of your syllabus, which is when it starts to look like this, okay? This is everything you're doing for that particular lesson. Everything you need to know is on the syllabus, but always check your email at least once a day, usually either the day of class, like that afternoon, or the following day. I'll send out a follow-up email because sometimes there's stuff that changes, right? Sometimes there's stuff where it's like, oh, we should have done whatever, or this lab didn't work, but you're going to need to use this data instead. So just always check it. So let's go to our actual, I missed all this because I didn't move my page. We talked about that, and we talked about, okay. Our year-end project is going to be super awesome, you guys. Super, super awesome. Did you all look at it? Did anybody see what it was? A Rube Goldberg machine. So we're going to be split into our 4 lab teams. We're going to have 4 lab teams, which we're going to talk about when we get to lab today. And we're going to be outside. And we're gonna, you've decided, huh? Well, we're going to be outside, and we're going to build Rube Goldberg machines with a goal. We're going to have like 3 weeks in which to build them. So they should be pretty involved and pretty big and really fun. I'm very much looking forward to it. All right, so let's look at our notes. So if everybody turns to their notes, which is the page, it's like this when it begins, right? It's lesson 1. And it's your first part of lesson 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over these notes and make sure everybody understands what they went over. And we'll probably see if we can come up with some examples and some discussion. Today is a little less discussion and nitty-gritty because we're worrying about getting through all this intro stuff that we just went over, right? And one other thing for you guys, when you get here, just come in. You don't need to ring. Your brother, you know, he never learned that, right? Like that was the thing. He rang the doorbell every time for a whole school year. And then this summer when we had our get-together, we were all hanging out, and the McCalls show up and the doorbell rings. And I'm like, who is ringing the door? And everybody goes, must be Dylan. And it was your whole family. And we were cracking up. It was the best thing ever. All right. So lesson 1, has everybody found it? Everybody found it? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our notes, and I'm going to go to my copy of my teacher notes because they have everything filled in. And we're going to go over it and make sure everybody knows what they're doing. Okay. Alrighty. Good. Why is that not the one? There it is. So tips on how to do your science homework. All right. So let's look through. What's our first lesson? Our first lesson was on what? What's the first blank? Does anybody see the first blank when you turn your page to the text? It's, there you go. Keep going, one more. All right, where you filled in blanks. There you go. So it says this week's lesson and next week's lesson are on what?
Video.
Video, good, okay. Why do we do them on video instead of in a book? Anybody remember? I said it a minute ago. Because your book doesn't have a chapter on how to do science, which is really ridiculous for a science book. I mean, it really should have a chapter on how to do science, what science is, what it means. It just sort of jumped in. And I'm like, no. Now their book, this is their book had a whole chapter on how to do science. So what we did is we kind of took what was in their book and condensed it down for you guys, because we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to methods and language we use. All right, so most of the lessons will be in your book, right? All right, but what's the next one?
Audio book?
An audio file. Okay, so how do you find the audio file? All right, there's going to be 2 ways to get to the audio file. Well, two ways to get to the audio file. If it's a video file, you can go through the Class Connect on the website, right? And it goes to the YouTube page. But for the audio files, you got 2 ways to find them. You can either go to the lesson plan in the gradebook. Did anybody do that? You go to the lesson plan in the gradebook. I don't know if you ever, did you ever log in? I don't think you did. You did? Okay. I don't know if it showed up on my side. I'll double check it. When you get in there to the lesson plan in the online gradebook, there'll be files in there that go with your lesson. You can click that audio file there, or if you want to save the Dropbox link for the class, you can just click the Dropbox link for the class and go to the file in there, because it's the same link. It's taking you to the same place both times, all right? So it'd be an audio file. And that's provided so you can listen and follow along with your book. So that doesn't mean like, you know, you stick your headphones in and you don't look at the book. Like you have to kind of look as you go along. Kind of pay attention. Now there are going to be times maybe when you can't look at your book, or like maybe you're like, we're traveling this year, we're going to be on a plane. And I don't want my kids to bring their giant heavy textbooks on a plane. So you can always just listen to the audio file that way. Or if you've got, you know, if you want to look at it in a car, on a trip, that's great. As long as you've got them both with you, if possible, because sometimes we're going to stop and reference a picture or something. Now, what if you don't want an audio file, or you don't need an audio file? You're totally comfortable reading. So in that case, you don't need it. There's not going to be anything extra in the audio file that's not in the book. Does that make sense? In the audio file, I might stop and say, okay, now look at the picture over here. But I'm assuming if you're reading, you're going to do that anyway. Is that cool? Because for those of you who don't know, there is a disproportionate number of dyslexic students in the class. So there's one's volunteering, two's volunteering. We have multiple dyslexics. So 2, 3, 4. There's like 4 out of the 7 of you. So or 8 of you, whatever. There's a lot, basically.
You don't even know how many you have.
I don't even know, because people just keep coming. Yeah. So yeah, there's one other little girl who's still coming. There's 9 of you total. That's right. And she's still coming. She's not here this week because they're on a birthday trip. Her name's Sky. She should be here next week. Do you know Sky? Okay, cool. Well, she'll be here. So if you need an audio file, you got it. If you don't need it, don't worry about it. Okay, so each week you should follow along with your lesson on video, or by listening to the audio file, or along with your book, or just reading. And fill in the what? Obviously, the blanks. Okay, now you guys have notes or whatever lessons that look like this, right? Hi, Roscoe. They look like this, and I have answers, you have blanks. The other group is going to have a standard outline format. Have any of you ever worked with a standard outline format before? So by the end of the year, you'll understand it, because we're going to do it by the end of the year. But it looks like this. Basically, you have a title up here, or whatever it is, and then there's Roman numeral 1, and it'll give like, maybe it's the, not the chapter, but maybe it's the section, okay? And then there'll be some more information, and then a letter A. Anybody ever seen this before? And the letter A is like a subsection, and then it's a number 1, and then it's a lowercase a, and then it becomes a Roman numeral, lowercase Roman numeral. So sometimes you'll have a note section it'll be like 2, you'll have an A and a B, and then after B, it'll be B3, and then it'll be C, and then it'll be like, and then maybe it'll be this one, and this is the one you have a question about. And it's real easy to say, Miss Danny, I have a question about section 2B, 3A, 4. And everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. See? And we'll get there. But I don't expect you guys to know how to do that yet. The older group will start with blanks in their outline like this, and by the end of the year, hopefully they will be writing their own as we go, which will be really good for them. All right, so then, oh yeah, for those of you who see Roscoe over there, the little red guy, yeah, he's 17, he's deaf, he's blind. He potties on the floor all the time. It's what he does. So if he does, just tell me. He can't even find the bathroom anymore, can't find the door, doesn't even know there is a door. He doesn't even know he's a dog. He doesn't know that it's morning. He doesn't know anything. He just wanders around aimlessly. And so you have to approach him slowly. He just really, yeah. He gets startled if you do that. All right, so if you miss an answer, backtrack to see if you can find it, right? Pause the video whenever you need to. You can always do that. You can pause the audio whenever you need to. If you've completed the lesson and the video, audio, reading, whatever you've got, and you'll have a few questions to answer at the end, all right? And that's what we handed in over here. And they were your questions that looked like this, right? And you guys put graph at the bottom. Mine just says varies because obviously I'm not going to draw a graph that looks like everybody else's graph. Multiple ways to do it, right? Now, on the back, this is the fun thing about this class, all right? On the back should be Rico. You guys, he's not on the back because double-sided mistakes, right? But you can staple him on. Every week, there will be a theme for Rico. I think the theme for Rico next week is the same, and we have to choose today. Let me double check, but I think we do. No, he's got it. Yeah, so Rico has a theme. Yeah, it's Rockstar, but this week it is. So what happens is, what you're gonna wanna do is, oh, I see, hang on, I'm looking at the order first. You're gonna, if you want to, you can color him. When you bring him in, don't show him to me and tell me he's yours, okay? I don't want to know whose he is, because what I do is, the first thing I do before I grade homework is I turn them all face down so all I can see is the Ricos. And then I pick one. And I give that person gummy bears or something next week, just as a, that was cool, it was fun. It's something fun to add to all the work, right? So you don't have to color him, but it's a fun thing to do. And then if I keep picking the same person every week, I try to, like, if I go, oh, it's him again, try to pick a different person, because we want everybody to have fun with it, but it's something cool to do. So always have your pencil, your binder. Obviously you guys did that. All right, so let's look at what is science, okay? That's this next section. Do you see it? So I have a Google definition. Google defines science as the intellectual. Do y'all see it? It's right, it's the next section. It should be right here on page, right?
Go back to the book.
Here on your notes. It's the next heading. It's in bold. So you're still on the same page as your notes, but it's bold. Sit. Let's see. Turn that way a little. You too, Delia. Go that way some more. Keep going. Keep going. We'll all figure it out. It'll take us, everybody, a little while to figure out how to navigate. There's definitely some navigating. So go behind this thing. Now this thing, y'all see this handy dandy little thing right here? Do you know what this is for? When you, what is it for?
A bookmark?
Yeah. When you finish this lesson, you put this behind your work so that when you open it up next time, there's lesson 2. You don't have to go looking for it. It's exactly what it is. It's a heavy bookmark. Okay, so we are right there where it says, what is science? So in your book, it's page 3 of lesson 1. Do you see how you have page numbers this way a little bit? You have just passed it. Right.
Did I do this like a couple days ago?
Oh, your lab stuff's out of order. Hang on. Oh, you know what? It's right there, Delia. See where it says what is science? Right here. Hang on, Drew. Right. Put that right there. Got it? You got it? Do you have it, Savannah? Keep going. A little further. A little further.
Do I have it?
You have it. Yeah. Yeah, you did this, Drew. We did it the other day. Okay, one more. I think one more. Right there. See where it says what is science? What is science? You got it. Okay, I got it. Oh, Roscoe.
My legs
I
are
know.
like holding them up. I'm
That's
like,
what he does. All right, so let's look at this. So the Google definition, says the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. Yeah, that's not helpful, right? You have to really think through that definition. So first thing it says is the intellectual and practical activity. So what's intellectual mean? Who filled in that blank? Who's got it? Yes, Jack. Mental. Okay, mental. He has mental for intellectual. I think that's probably good. Not mental like you are so mental, but mental like in your head, thinking, right? All right, now how about practical? Who's got practical? Anybody have practical? Jackson.
Hands-on.
Hands-on, very good. All right, now it has the word encompassing. Eleanor.
Surrounding.
Good. That's a big word, encompassing. I like that word. That's a good word to use in your writing. If you're doing writing for your moms or whatever, and you think, oh, I could say surrounding. There was a grove of trees surrounding the park, encompassing the park. Oh. All right, and how about systematic? Who's got that, Delia?
Organized.
Good, all right. And then structure. Who's got structure? Savannah.
Construction.
Good. And how about behavior? Trash. Good. And how about physical? Drew, do you have physical?
I do. Touchable?
Touchable. All right, excellent. And we only have 3 more. How about natural? Yes,
Real.
good. And then we've got observation. Drew, observation. What do you have for that? Do you have a synonym? Anybody have one? Do you have a synonym?
Watching?
Watching is good. All right, and then do we have one more? Eleanor.
Experiment test.
Testing, good. Okay, so with observation, so now we have watching down, but if we're going to be technical about science stuff, it can be anything you perceive through your senses. So it's not just watching, it's hearing, seeing, smelling, it's data you get from instruments, all that is an observation. So it's a big, wide definition. So we can, by those definitions and synonyms, we can take the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure, the behavior, the physical and natural world through observation and experimentation, and break it down to the mental and hands-on activity surrounding the organized study of the construction and actions of the touchable and real world through watching and testing. Does that make a little more sense? A little more. It's still a lot of words. Or simply, the study of what? What do we have in the next blank there? Trav, you got it?
Natural.
Study of the natural world through, yep,
Knowledge.
knowledge and about the natural world that's based on, yep, facts, good. Learn through, yes,
Experiments.
experiments and what's the other one?
Status.
Status, oh, that's okay, that's good. What do you have?
Observation.
Observation, okay, yeah, so you could do that through experiment and observation and experiment. Your word's not bad either. Good, yeah, testing, good.
Tells me.
Testing's good, I know.
I was looking at the wrong part.
You're fine, you're fine. All right, so science is broken down into 3 main branches, all right? So now we're gonna draw. You guys are gonna tell me what they are. So we got 3, let me erase my outline. Okay, we got 3 main branches of science, right? So let's do it like a little graph or a little chart in a graph. Science, okay, we have 3 main branches. Somebody tell me 1. What? Thank you, Jack.
Formal.
Formal sciences, all right. Somebody tell me another one. Drew. Wait, not there yet. 3 big branches, we'll get there.
Natural.
Natural, okay. Well, no, that falls under here. We're not there yet, silly. Okay, natural, and then one more. Savannah.
Social.
Social, okay, good. All right, these are our big branches, all right? Excellent. So somebody tell me what is formal science? Anybody got it? Yes.
The study of mathematics.
Yeah, mathematics. What else?
Logic and statistics.
Right, okay. So our formal sciences, all right, so what you've got in your first 3 sentences here so far, or 2 sentences, 2.5 sentences, is science is broken into 3 main branches. They are formal science, natural sciences, and social sciences. The study of mathematics, logic, and statistics falls under formal science. So this is mathematics, make that plural, if I feel like it, logic, and statistics. Okay, does anybody know what any of these are? You probably know what this is, right? All right, so what about these 2? Does anybody know what they are? Anybody have a clue? You have a clue?
Statistics is like stats and facts that are laid out that you can read or see that are based on what happened and what that thing does.
That's really good. That's actually a good definition. So if anybody follows baseball, for example, like baseball players all have statistics. They have their RBIs and all those statistics that tell you how likely they are to get a home run, that sort of thing. There's lots of percentages in statistics. Statistics can involve demographics. Like you take a city and you break it down by its citizens by age, race, education, how much money they make each year. That's all statistics, right? So it's a lot of math, but it involves other stuff too. And then logic. Does anybody know what logic is? Do you know?
Full spectrum musical artist.
There's that.
There you
That's a good answer. Do you know?
Like, it like makes sense.
Kind of, yeah. So there are logic problems, for example, and some of my favorite ones, you might have seen them before. It'll say like, I'll stand that up so nobody trips over it. It'll say things, and this is just, logic is lots of stuff, but if you wanted to practice logic, what you might see, it'll say like blue, and then it'll say like a sweater, and then it'll say like, I don't know, shoes on one side, and it's like a graph. Have you ever seen these? And then over here, it'll say like, you know, Beth and John and Mark. Yeah, you ever seen these? And then sometimes there's a third set of things, but it'll say something like, 3 friends went shopping on Saturday. Yeah. This can't be blue. That doesn't make sense. I was going to do something else. Sweater, shoes, and the hat. Okay. And then it'll say, Beth did not buy the hat. Okay. And then it will say, like, the shoes were bought by a girl. Okay, well, they did not buy the shoes. She did. So now we know who the shoes belong to and who did not buy. So we know that one of these guys bought a sweater.
Did you just sing the story?
I did. So, you know, that sort of a thing. And I have a ton of them. If you ever want to do them, I've got lots of them. And I also have a really good app for them. I have one app that's too hard that I gave up. It was too hard. So that's logic. And then what's our next color going to be? Natural. Okay, what are our natural sciences? Who's got the natural sciences? Anybody? Drew.
Like plants and life and stuff.
We got 2 big branches. Do you see what they are? There's 2 big branches. Do you see them? Read your next sentence and see if you can find them. Statistics falls under formal science. Then it says natural science can be divided into 2 main branches. Do you see it?
Life.
Go ahead, Eleanor.
Physical
Yep. What's the other one?
and life.
Right, okay. And these can be subdivided like tons of ways, right? Because under here you'll have biology, biology, zoology, entomology, ornithology, anything that has to do with anything that's alive. And then this wouldn't. No, it's okay. Everybody said life. I just asked her to read it. It's not a contest. And then over here, lots of things fall under physical, like chemistry and physics and earth science and geology. Basically, stuff that's not living, that has that's impacted by forces. And well, living things are impacted by forces too. Basically, things that aren't living.
I was about to say.
Lots of them. But
We're living.
yeah, we're living. We're impacted by forces. Yeah. All right, Drew, what you got?
Oh, some wood.
Mhm.
Stuff like gravity, would that fall under like earth and space science, or would that fall under physics?
Physics mostly, but it impacts everything else. And we will be talking about it this year because we're doing a lot. We're talking about Newton a lot. And you know, Newton had a lot to say about gravity and forces in motion in general. So the last one is social. So what's a social science? What you got, Jack?
Behavior,
Behavior and what?
society.
Okay, good. So this is where you're going to find society. So you're going to find here like your social studies, okay, which is kind of, people think of it as a humanities, which is stuff like language arts and history, but there's definitely some science involved with that, right? Because when you think about it, when you really study other cultures, there's definitely some science involved in that studying because you end up doing statistics at some point. And then behavior, so this is stuff like psychology, right? Psychiatry, all that kind of business. So if you're a psychologist, for example, this is where you live, right here. But if you're a psychiatrist, you live in both because psychiatrists are medical doctors and they would fall under life sciences, right? But they also deal with behavior. Psychiatrists can like write prescriptions and psychologists have to ask a doctor to write a prescription. There you go. All right, so we have all that. So now we're going to look at the section that says physical science can be further divided into 3 main branches, and this is what we were talking about. Those are your big 3, and that's what are your four main branches, sorry. What are the big four branches for physical science? Anybody have it? It's the next blank. You got it? Yeah. Somebody, you got it? Go ahead.
Astronomy.
Uh-huh.
Chem-
Wait, let her. Go ahead.
Chemistry.
Uh-huh.
Earth science.
Yep, and physics. That's the other one. Excellent. And the big ideas in physical science are time and space, matter and change, force and motion, and energy. Do we have those? Okay, excellent. Now we're going to real quick look at this last section on theories versus laws and measurement and data, because it's almost time for lab. See? This class goes quickly. All right, so I'm going to read this, and I want you to follow along in your notes. Does everybody see where it says theories versus laws? Everybody got that?
Yes.
Okay. It's going to do that when people come in. All right, when studying science, what's the difference between a theory and a law? This is hugely important to understand. Amen. They're all upstairs, Henry. Okay, so this is super important to understand because people confuse them all the time. Hold on, Drew. So when studying science, what's the difference between a theory and a law? A scientific law tells what happens, it's a fact, right? And a scientific theory tells why it happens, it's an explanation, all right? So
Where are we?
we're under theories versus laws right there. Yep, okay. So it's very, very easy to remember it as a law tells what and a theory tells why. Okay, now, a law is something that is repeatable. It happens again and again and again and again and again. It's consistent. Like, you know, you hold a ball and you open your hand and it falls every time. The theory explains why it falls. So the thing about theories is they aren't completely proven, but they're very supported. It could be proven later when we have more information, and then it can kind of become a law. But what you need to understand is that theories can be disproven, and many, many, many of them have, especially when we get into stuff like when we start talking about plate tectonics and, you know, the fact that we started with Pangea and everything moved and people didn't believe that for a long time. And especially when we start talking about what's at the center of our solar system, because man, those theories have changed over time a lot. So in this class, because it's a science class, we're going to study scientific law and scientific theory. For example, and this is important, I want everybody to understand, there are multiple theories of origin. Origin means where we came from, right? So there are theories of origin that have to do with some people. Have you ever seen that aliens guy on TV, the ancient aliens guy, who believe that like we are all here because some aliens came and planted us here. There were alien astronauts and like we're really alien descendants. I mean, that dude wholeheartedly believes that, and that's his theory, but that's not science, so we're not talking about it in science class. There's also certain like indigenous tribes that believe that, you know, humans were created from the earth and from mud, and that's their belief system, which is awesome. It's really cool, but that's a theory and it's not science, so it's not in science class. Same thing goes for religious creationism and all of that. Those are all awesome. And if it's what you believe in your heart of hearts, fabulous. But when it comes to what we discuss, we're going to discuss it as science. So this paragraph reads, this is a science class. It'll be taught from a scientific perspective. All of the theories of origin discussed in this class, which there won't be very many in this class, more in biology, believe me, will be scientific theories. Different people hold different personal and religious beliefs. So it's safe to assume that all the questions and answers in this class are prefaced, that means beforehand, with an unvoiced. So this means anything you say in this class, or I say in this class, we're going to assume that what you're saying is really according to scientific theory, and then whatever you said, rather than I personally believe. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
That's kind of confusing. But what I'm trying to say is, so if I said Earth started with the Big Bang, what I'm really saying in this class is, according to scientific theory, Earth started with the Big Bang. I'm not saying what I personally believe is that Earth started with the Big Bang, because it doesn't matter what you personally believe in science class. We're just going to say what science says. Does that make sense? Great. Okay. And then let's look at this little bit about measurement. All right. And then we should be, it's almost time for lab. So If you stop and think about it for a bit, you'll realize that measurements surround you on all sides. And guess what? They matter. They're there for a reason. We measure to keep track of time. There's your first blank. Every minute of the day. We also gauge our health based upon all sorts of measurements. So some common examples, you guys might have picked anything, but height, weight, blood pressure, BMI, you know, your doctor does all these kinds of measurements. When you get your eyes done, if you go to the optometrist, they measure, you know. Anybody with glasses definitely knows. You've had it done even though you don't have glasses. Yep.
I've had it. I mean, I have glasses, but I'm not blind.
Yeah.
I'm never having contacts.
Oh, no?
They literally had to hold me down to get them out.
Oh, no. That's no fun. So when you go to the kitchen to cook, for example, measurements are very important. When you go on vacation, you probably keep a close eye on signs that count down miles to reach your destination. Do you know on the interstate highways that when you enter a state from the north, it has the highest mileage from that interstate? So say, how do I explain this? Say Georgia has 85, right? And it goes, 85 comes in from South Carolina, it goes out like near Alabama, I think. Or 95 definitely comes in on the coast of Georgia, goes down into Florida. The mile marker at the very bottom is mile marker 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up. So when you come into Georgia, if it says 237 and you know you're going to Florida, you got 237 miles before you hit the border. You can always count that down. That makes trips a little shorter if you do that. And then when it comes to woodworking, you might be aware of the old saying, measure twice, cut once. Everybody knows that one? Measure twice, cut once. So you got length, so some things we measure: length, mass, which is how much matter, weight, area, 2D volume, 3D volume. 2D is area, volume is 3D, density, how much mass is contained in a space, right? Time and temperature. And we're going to go over all these things more throughout the year. Measurement can be non-standard or standard. So in the US, what system do we use typically? Does anybody have that one? In the US, this is the last sentence under why is measurement important? You got it, Trev?
The imperial?
Yep, you can call it imperial, standard, or customary. That's inches, feet, yards, miles, right? That's what we use here. The rest of the world uses the metric system. The rest of the world uses the metric system. Even the English who created the standard system use the metric system.
We're stubborn Americans.
Yes, we are. We will not change it. But in science, we typically use metric. So most of this, not all, but most of what we do this year will be in metric, and metric is so much easier because it's all tens, hundreds, thousands. There's no converting a pint to a quart, or, I mean, that gets, whoever came up with that. And then the last bit, how do you present scientific data? So data are the information gained from observing and testing. Those are your blanks, right? Scientists use data to gain understanding and make conclusions. Scientists often use graphs or tables to show their data. So on your homework, you should have a graph or data, and this homework was this homework should have been a little longer than most because of all these notes, but I'll just show you so you don't have to flip around. But when you once you get out of lesson 4 and into lesson 5, so lesson 5 is tiny. It's only section 1 and section 2 of a chapter. It's not even a whole chapter, right? It's part of a chapter. And some of these are going to be like, look right there. Lesson 6 is just one section of a chapter. And it says, for example, it says acceleration 9.3. And when you get to that, I'll show you, or you can look even in your notes at lesson 6. It's not long. It really isn't. Like this, these are all your notes for lesson 6. Look. Very short. All the yellow marks are your blanks. You're confused? It's only these first couple chapters that are big. They get smaller. That's what you need to know. First couple lessons.
Where was that?
Oh, it's just it's lesson 6, for example. So I'm just saying, if you want to flip through your binder and look at what's coming, it gets shorter. The first ones are big because we're just trying to get a broad coverage of things. And we want to cover a lot, but not very detailed. When we get into the physics, which starts at lesson 5, we're going to cover a little with a lot of detail each week. So the lessons become shorter because we're not covering as much, but we're going to cover it in a lot of detail. Does that make sense? Sort of, kind of. All right, so what we're going to do now is it's going to be lab time. So I'm going to stop this recording. Okay, and hopefully that works. End meeting.